Sony has just announced the beginning of the end for physical PlayStation games. From 2028, new games will no longer be released on discs, and instead, PlayStation will become a digital-only platform. And while that might sound like it's just a gaming story, I actually think it raises a much more interesting question. Why is it that almost every form of media has moved towards digital? So much so that the physical versions no longer seem to sell in huge numbers and have stuck around mainly for enthusiasts and collectors. Except one. Because somehow, after all these years, the humble book is still here. Welcome to the Weekly Spark, where each week I take a look at a tech story that's caught my attention and I think a little bit more deeply about what it might mean. And this week I've been thinking about books. Because whenever a story comes out about another physical product disappearing, whether that's disc-based games, DVDs, CDs or something else, the conversation normally goes the same way. People say it's a shame. They say they miss owning something physical. They miss having a collection. They miss walking over to a shelf, picking something up, looking at the artwork and remembering why and when they bought it. But then the slightly awkward truth is most of us stopped buying those things. We say we love physical media, but we stream music. We say we love DVDs and Blu-rays, but we watch Netflix. We say we like owning games, but according to Sony at least, more and more people are downloading them. And companies tend to follow where customers lead. Now that doesn't mean physical media has completely disappeared. There are still plenty of people, like I said at the beginning, who love collecting Blu-rays, DVDs, CDs, and even cassettes. And vinyl records are probably the biggest exception. They've actually made a huge comeback, partly because for many people, they aren't just a way to listen to music. The record itself, the artwork, the process of putting it on and building a collection are all part of the experience. And I completely understand why. For some people, the physical object isn't just a way to access the content. The object itself is part of the enjoyment. But the reality is, for a lot of these industries, those collectors are the enthusiastic minority rather than the majority. Most people have chosen convenience. And Sony's decision with PlayStation is really just another sign of that. But books seem to be different. And I find that fascinating. Because when the Kindle launched, it really did feel like this was going to be the future of reading. Thousands of books in your pocket. That weighs less than a single paperback. You can finish a book at midnight, buy the next one, and be reading it within seconds. But despite all that, over 20 years later, bookshops haven't disappeared. People still buy hardbacks. People still collect special editions. People still love having shelves full of books. Again, strangely analogous to vinyl. So why? Why did books survive when so many other forms of physical media struggled? I think part of it is because books aren't just another type of media. A CD is really just a way to get music into your ears. A DVD is a way to get a film onto a screen. A game disc is increasingly just a way to install files onto a console. But a book is different. The object itself matters. A book on a shelf can remind you of a certain time in your life. A book can be passed on. A book can have a message written inside the cover. A book can sit there for years waiting for you to finally get around to reading it, which, if I'm being honest, is probably half my bookshelf. And maybe that's why ebooks and physical books have managed to live alongside each other. Because I don't think the Kindle was about replacing the book. It solved a problem. It replaced carrying many books around with you. Going on holiday and wanting to take 5 books, despite the fact you'll probably only read one. Reading in bed without a lamp on so as not to disturb your other half. Changing the font size when your eyes aren't quite what they used to be. In fact, just being able to have your entire library wherever you go. All those things are brilliant reasons to own an e-reader. But it didn't replace everything a physical book represents. And maybe that's where some technology companies get things wrong. They assume that if something is technically better, smaller, faster, and more convenient, then people will automatically stop caring about the old version. But humans are strange. Sometimes we don't just want the most efficient option, we want the option we actually enjoy using. Now, I'm not saying every physical thing needs saving. Technology moves forward, and a lot of the time it moves forward because we choose it. But maybe books show there's a middle ground. Maybe the future isn't always about replacing the old thing. Sometimes it's about the old and the new finding different purposes. My Kindle is where I read most of my books, but my bookshelf is where I keep the books I want to own, whether that's because they mean something to me or simply because I like having them there. They look nice. And maybe that's at least partly why, after all these years, the book is still here. Why do you think books survive despite the onslaught of the digital tsunami, when other media has fallen by the wayside, or at the very least, like vinyl, has taken a generation or so to make a comeback? What makes a book worth buying physically rather than digitally? Alright, I hope this episode has made you think. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. If you have appreciated this video, please do like and subscribe if you're on YouTube. And if you fancy going that little bit further, you can buy me a virtual coffee by scanning the QR code that's on the screen, or check out the link in the description. I'm Mark from the Weekly Spark, and I'll see you in the next one.